Let's talk about the Chicago Bears and a potential move they could make to replace Jack Sanborn, who's now with the Dallas Cowboys. One name that's been floated around? Free agent linebacker E.J. Speed, who spent the last few years with the Colts. Bleacher Report recently mentioned Speed as a possible target for Chicago, and there's some logic behind it. The Bears struggled against the run last season, ranking near the bottom of the league in key rushing defense stats. New linebackers coach Richard Smith was with Indianapolis during Speed's time as a full-time starter, so there's an obvious connection. Speed could slide in as the Bears' third linebacker, step up as a starter if needed, and contribute on special teams, the exact role Sanborn played before leaving. Right now, the Bears don't have a clear third linebacker. A Jay Ogletree? He's more of a depth guy and a special teams piece, not a real replacement for Sanborn. Speed, on the other hand, has starting experience and back-to-back 100 tackle seasons, but at almost 30 years old, he's probably best suited as a rotational piece in a defense that mostly plays nickel. If the price is right, Chicago could take a serious look at him. One more thing to consider. This move wouldn't just be about this season. If Speed performs well, he could have a bigger role in the future. Tremaine Edmunds could be a cap casualty after this year, and T.J. Edwards, unless he gets extended, will be a free agent in 2026. So adding a guy like Speed now could be a smart long-term play for the Bears. Now, if you take a look at E.J. Speed's PFF grades, the high tackle numbers can be a little misleading. He's solid against the run, but coverage isn't really his strength. As a third linebacker, though, that wouldn't be a huge concern. His job would be to come in, play downhill, and help against the run in obvious situations. In nickel packages, where the Bears will spend most of their time anyway, he wouldn't be on the field much, so the coverage issue wouldn't be a major factor. The question is, do the Bears like the fit? And does Speed? That's where things get interesting. Chicago needs another linebacker, and Speed might not get many chances to be a full-time starter elsewhere in 2025. The longer he waits, the fewer opportunities will be available. So, if both sides see the value in a deal, it's something that could make sense. Now, let's shift gears to another decision the Bears have to make. Should they bring back veteran tight end Marcedes Lewis? Marcedes Lewis made an appearance last week and essentially made his pitch to return to the Bears. And honestly, I didn't see this coming. He joined Chicago 2 years ago when they went 7-10, then stuck around last season for a 5-12 finish. With a new coaching staff in place, you'd think he might look for a fresh start, maybe try to latch on with a contender. But that's not what he said. Instead, Lewis made it clear that re-signing with the Bears is his best-case scenario. He's been in Chicago for 2 years, knows the process, understands the expectations, and most importantly, still has a strong relationship with tight ends coach Jim Dray. That's a key factor. Lewis acknowledged that while the coaching staff has changed, Dray remains in place, and that continuity matters to him. He also talked about wanting to see Cole Kmet continue to grow, calling it a blessing to be part of that development. Now, let's be real. Lewis is 40. He's not going to be a factor in the passing game, and at this point, his snap count is going to be limited. He did mention that a few teams have reached out, so there's some interest around the league. But it's still surprising that he's so focused on coming back to Chicago with a new staff in place. As a blocker, he's still effective in pass protection, though his run blocking was more average last season. Even so, he remains one of the better blocking tight ends in the league, even if he's only on the field for about 20 snaps per game. The question is, do the Bears actually need him? When they signed Durham Smythe, it felt like that might have been the move that pushed Lewis out. Smythe is mostly a blocking tight end at this point, and with Kmet already on the roster, the room looks pretty set. Behind them, Steven Carlson might compete for a roster spot, but he's mostly been a practice squad guy, so could Lewis still find his way back onto the roster? If they signed him today, where would he fit? That's the real question. If we're being honest, Marcedes Lewis would probably make this roster. He's better than Steven Carlson, no question. But here's the thing. The Bears might be looking to the draft to bring in a young tight end. They haven't drafted one since colin, and he's already 5 or 6 years into his career. At some point, they need to start developing a new guy, even if it's a late-round pick in the 5th or 6th round. Now, Ben Johnson likes tight ends who can block. That's exactly what Lewis brings to the table. Last year, Johnson's offense in Detroit ranked 3rd in the league in using 12 personnel, which tells you he's comfortable going heavier at the position. Last season, the Bears carried 3 tight ends. Maybe this year they keep 4. If they draft 1, they could still sign Lewis before training camp and roll into Week 1 with Kmet, Durham-Smythe, the rookie, and Lewis as their group. So, bringing Lewis back? Not a bad idea, but there's no rush. Let the draft play out, see how the roster looks, and then revisit it if necessary. It's not like Lewis is signing somewhere tomorrow. If he returns, fine. If not, it's not going to make or break this team. He didn't have a great year last season and had too many pre-snap penalties, so if the Bears decide to go younger, it makes sense. That said, you can understand why a veteran like him would want to be part of Ben Johnson's offense.